Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Judhapatakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for being here. This year, something very dear and historical has unfolded. The very place where Srila Prabhupada received the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada to take the message of Krishna consciousness in the English language to the Western world and all over the world. The rooftop of Uttadanga Junction Road, the place where the preaching of Gaudiya Math began. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us full possession of that building. In 1930, sometime around 1930-32, the devotees moved out of that building, which was rented, for a temple was built at Bagh Bazaar. And from that day, no Vaishnav has been really allowed in the building. And a few years ago, we got some flat in the bottom floor. but this year the whole building and the rooftop. And I remember after the GBC meetings, where I really needed shelter, I went to Calcutta and for the first time went to that rooftop. It's completely dilapidated, which is really good. Because we want to restore it to its original state that it was like. So when devotees could go there, they could feel the experience of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Most all of Prabhupada's senior godbrothers actually joined there. So it's good that it's dilapidated because since 1930, it has never been maintained or repaired. So that means all the original materials are there. So we just have to put it back together with what's there, and then it's original. But I was sitting there with a few brahmacharis and other devotees from Calcutta. And I could just picture where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada was sitting and where Prabhupada would be sitting. When you go on the rooftop, it's very easy to figure out exactly where they were. And how he received this message. To take the message of Lord Chaitanya around the world. And what is that message of Lord Chaitanya? Because assisting Srila Prabhupada in this mission is the only purpose of my life. And to whatever extent I have influence over all of you, I'm hoping it becomes the only purpose of your life, essentially. That mission was summarized succinctly by Srila Rupa Goswami. Because we are Rupanugas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha, Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. That Sri Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, is Krishna with the Mahabhav of Sri Radha. And when Rupa Goswami and his brother Anupam, after they left their luxuries and their influence and their power, everything that they had, they went to Prayag. They were actually on their way to Vrindavan to meet Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya was on his way back. And upon seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he composed this prayer. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaudadveshe Namah. That Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, is the most munificent, most magnanimous, most merciful of all incarnations. Even more merciful than Krishna. How is that possible? How could Krishna be more merciful than Krishna? Because Krishna is absolute and he's supreme. And being supreme and independent to do as he likes, he can become more merciful than himself. And that's what he does. We read in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita how even Krishna is crying and longing to understand the sweetness of Sri Radha's love. The happiness she feels when she tastes the sweetness of his love. Krishna wants to feel Radharani's heart, the nature of her prema. So he appears as Lord Chaitanya. Radha Bhavaduti Subalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. Krishna, the love of Sri Radha. So just as Krishna is longing to experience the love of Radha, which he considers superior to himself, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, who's actually spreading the love of Sri Radha. Therefore, he's so very happy to be more merciful than himself. And that prema that he's giving, entrance into understanding Krishna as the supreme object of everyone's love in Vrindavan, is Lord Chaitanya's message. It was there at Prayag, Lord Chaitanya himself said that I saw the humility of Sri Rupa Goswami, and seeing he had no false ego, he had no envy. He was willing to do anything and everything to serve. I embraced him. And when I embraced him, I invoked my personal prema, my personal ecstatic love in his heart, and gave him the power to understand my love and experience my love. And Lord Chaitanya actually proclaimed this in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita when he was with his very, very worshipable devotees in Jagannath Puri, the special place of Rupa Goswami. So when Srila Prabhupada got this instruction, he was a grihasta, like so many of you. And he was always meditating on fulfilling this instruction. Even though he had children to raise, and then he had more children, and then even had more children. When he got the instruction, he had one child, but then there were several more. And at the time, he was just starting his career in Calcutta, and then later he moved to expand his career in Allahabad, and then to Mumbai, very close to here. But he was always preparing. He's raising his family, performing his duties. Later on, often he would say, my Guru Maharaj gave me the instruction, 1922. In 1965, he finally departed. He said, I should have done it immediately, but better late than never. That's Prabhupada's humility. So you grihastas, you have that concession. But even if you're raising your families, remember, better late than never. But for you brahmacharis, you can, I should have done it immediately. So Prabhupada inspires everybody simultaneously. But after he retired from his secular activities, even as a grihasta, he was printing back to Godheads, and he was writing articles for his Guru Maharaj's mission and so many things. But he prepared himself at Sri Radha Damodar Temple, which is the Samadhi and the Bhajan Kutir of Sri Rupa Goswami, and the Samadhi of Sri Jiva Goswami. And the most common meeting place of all the 6 Goswamis and their close associates. Because Jiva Goswami was the youngest among them, and he was going to be the successor. So they wanted to really nourish him and encourage him. So Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, they would often meet right there. Thank you. It was a very electrifying meetings they were having. It jolted the world. So Prabhupada went there to prepare. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was especially giving emphasis to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He considered that the ultimate supreme of all scriptures. So Srila Prabhupada, taking the order of his Guru Maharaj as his life and soul to spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, he prepared himself by writing translations and meditating on the commentaries of all the great acharyas who have commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. And when he completed the first canto in the English language, as his Guru Maharaj directly instructed him, he was ready to take it to the West. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur very specifically instructed Prabhupada. Sometimes Prabhupada said, he ordered me. Other times he said he suggested. But Prabhupada took it as his order. In fact, Vyavasayatmaka Bhutyareke Hakurunandana Bahushaka Yanantascha Budhayo Vivashayana. Prabhupada took it as his very life and soul to take Lord Chaitanya's message of pure, unalloyed, ecstatic love for Krishna to the West. And he took it to the West. He went to New York, and after struggling for almost a year, Butler, Pennsylvania, he started a tiny little storefront. That storefront is about 1/4 the size of this room we're in now. And Srila Prabhupada, with the help of some people, he established an international society with branches all over the world. And the international headquarters was 26 2nd Avenue. A very small, dilapidated little storefront. There was not even a single chair. There was nothing. It wasn't until after some time when some young people from America decided to move in that they started bringing some pictures to put on the walls and putting some little mats on the floor. Otherwise, Prabhupada was just sitting on the floor and chanting and cooking himself, singing himself. Then he went to San Francisco. And then something historical happened. He met Shamsundar Prabhu. Who happens to be with us this evening. And of course, Malati Devi and little Saraswati and Yamuna Devi and Guru Das Prabhu and His Holiness Mukunda Goswami Maharaj and Janaki Devi. A little later, he sent them to London. Then he brought some of them to India. And I'm very happy to tell you, very historical, the second volume of Shamsundar Prabhu's book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, is all about how he personally eyewitnessed and was activatedly involved in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement in India. So if you buy this book and read it, you'll be most fortunate. And if you do not, then you will be quite unfortunate. But Srila Prabhupada, he really risked everything to take Krishna to the West. He went to New York, he went to San Francisco, he went to Montreal, he went to London, he went to Moscow, he went to Africa, he went to South America, he went to Australia. But so many of the resources that he had everywhere, he wanted to bring Krishna consciousness to reawaken the people of India. And this was a very important part of Prabhupada's mission, where he put maximum of his time and his energy. But what he would tell the people of India, Bharata Bhumite Hoila Manusya Janmajar, he would tell his god brothers, we should take this message all over the world. So I'm telling you this part of the story as sort of a justification and an apology. Because in the early days here, of course, in my own life, I became a devotee in Vrindavan. I first met Srila Prabhupada in Mumbai. No, in those days, Bombay. Sometimes when I'm outside of India, if I say Mumbai, people don't know where it is, and I say Bombay. Oh, yes, now I know. And other times you say Bombay, and they don't know what it is, and then you say Mumbai, and oh, yes. So Achintya Veda Veda has so many different manifestations. But I became a devotee in Vrindavan after Srila Prabhupada planted a seed in my heart. Just a few minutes away from here at Cross Maidan in Mumbai, Shamsundar Prabhu was there. And then I had to go to West. And for so many years, I was seeking a spiritual path and a guru. And when I truly accepted Prabhupada as my guru, the place I was living, I didn't even like. I only went there to pass some time to be with Srila Prabhupada and do some service so I could go back to Vrindavan when I could get another visa, which was minimum 6 months. But when it was time, after Srila Prabhupada left, I was thinking, is my way of thinking Krishna conscious? I know, we should be serving according to our nature. And I thought my nature was to live under a tree on the bank of the Yamuna in Vrindavan. But is that actually what Prabhupada wants me to do? And I was thinking, I'm a brahmachari. I shouldn't go anywhere unless Prabhupada asks me to do it. Right now I'm here. I don't like it here, but right now I'm here, so I should just serve here unless I'm given an instruction to go elsewhere. And somehow I wasn't given any instructions. So I served there. And then long story, complicated story, mysterious story, but I was asked to leave. So it was kind of a sweet liberation in one sense. And I started preaching in the Western world and colleges and universities and towns. And then for some inconceivable reason, I had to take sannyas by force. And I came to India, and then I was ordered to stay in India, in Mumbai. And Srinathji Prabhu and Mahaprabhu Prabhu and Sahadev Prabhu, and Krishna Chandra Prabhu and Palika and Radha Krishna Prabhu and Radha Priya and Maithili Priya and all these devotees were here. And we didn't really have anything. And somehow we started by Srinathji Prabhu and Maithili Priya Devi's influence. We got one little tiny basement room in Chopati. And we started there. And we were just preaching. And 99.999% of all the preaching was going out to people's homes and to colleges, because there was no place to take anyone in the temple. And, there's a lot of other esoteric situations that was there. Rohini Nandan Prabhu and Devi Priya Mataji, everyone. We had a disconnect from the rest of the movement at that time. But things grew. By Prabhupada's mercy. I'm not an intellectual. I have no money. I have no skills. So what do you do when you're asked to be a leader and you don't know how to manage and you have no skills and you're not intelligent? What do you do? Should I tell you what I did? I helplessly prayed. And somehow or other, all skillful, intelligent, academically suited, financially solid people started coming. And then we got the whole building. It took about 10 years. Then we could start renovating it. And then doctors started hospital, and the grihastas who had children started Gopal's Fund School. And so many branches, the counselor system, Govardhan Eco Village, many projects, the midday meals, Anamrita. And I'm just explaining my heart to you today. Now we have, hundreds, if not thousands, of very qualified people. But what's the purpose? From my perspective, the purpose is to fulfill assisting Prabhupada in the mission of his Guru Maharaj. And although Prabhupada took so many resources from the West, it was all resources of men and funds and everything from the West that actually built Mayapur initially, Vrindavan, and Radharas Bihari Temple. But the specific instruction was English language in the West. So I was thinking, what would Prabhupada want? There's letters that Srila Prabhupada wrote where he was explaining, even in India, because he was so much harmonizing. Even in India, one of his main purposes was to provide facilities for people that come to the West from the West to India to give them the opportunity to learn about Krishna consciousness, to become Krishna conscious. But it was never really done. In many places in the West, things were not doing very well. So I felt, if I'm Prabhupada's disciple, and I have some influence, Srila Prabhupada would want us to try to revive the Krishna consciousness movement in the West. And Srila Prabhupada said New York was the most important city in the world. And somehow or other, without my even asking, a building was kind of given. So it seemed like this is what I should do. And then I got implicated and complicated. But in the process, I haven't spent as much time, not even near as much time here in India. I used to be minimum 10 months a year living in Radha Gopinath Temple. Practically not going anywhere except to Srinathji Prabhu's house or Krishna Chandra Prabhu's house or Mahaprabhu's house every Friday. In those early days, those were the biggest programs we had because it was the biggest space we had anywhere in the world. It was Mahaprabhu's driveway and garage. Yes, that was it. Every Friday. And I remember at the beginning we were inside, and then somehow or other after a while it got filled up. We filled up a garage. The garage is about the size of 26 2nd Avenue. And then we thought, we are just exploding. It's a Hare Krishna explosion for us when we moved outside the garage. And the trains would go by and make all that noise. And I remember there was many mosquitoes. But that's what we did. So now, somehow we reconnected with Iskcon, and I was made a GBC and all of that, so I have so many responsibilities. And would Prabhupada want his devotees who had the means to try to help revive our movement in the West? There's absolutely no question in my mind that he would. But in many ways it breaks my heart because I've been away from all of you for most of the time. And all of you have given your lives. And everything I can do for anyone is only because I have the empowerment of all of your love and support. And for that I'm eternally grateful. So, I know that some devotees are thinking it's not the way it was. Why is Radhanath Swami always away? I'm not neglecting you. You're my life and soul. You're my everything. But my life and soul and everything is for Srila Prabhupada because he's my guru. And this is Vaishnava tradition. This is true Vedic tradition. This is Sanatana Dharma. That we put our own preferences second to what will please my guru. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. Yasya prasada nagati kotopi. It's the best way of pleasing Krishna. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev is speaking to Devahuti. And the chapter about devotional service, he's describing how by associating with devotees, by hearing from them and by pleasing them, that is the method of actually connecting to Krishna. Ad bhakta pujapyadika. Krishna is most pleased when we serve his devotees. Prabhupada's our founder, Acharya. Acharya means he's teaching by his example. And as a disciple, what does that mean to me? That my life and soul is just not what I want to be, but to somehow or other, directly or indirectly, depending on, as a sannyasi, it should be very directly, to follow his example. He left Vrindavan, the age of 69, to go to the West. And today, this is kind of like a birthday thing, and I happen to be 69. So this 69 years old is when Prabhupada celebrated his 69th birthday on the Jaladuta in Cochin. And just after his 69th birthday, that was at the time Janmashtami he celebrated in Cochin on Jaladuta. He went from Calcutta around India to Kerala. And that's where the Srimad Bhagavatams were brought on board, and then he went across the Arabian Sea. And for those of you who haven't reached 69 years old yet, you'll see what it's like. The body just doesn't work anymore. Prabhupada pushed. Why? He's living in Vrindavan. Why? Heart attacks. New York, he had a stroke. Further heart attacks. Seasicknesses. Poverty. Loneliness of no other companions. Why did he do that? Because his Guru Maharaj told him to go to the West to spread Lord Chaitanya's teaching. And Lord Chaitanya's teaching is pure devotional service. Natanamna janamna sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kame mama janmani janmanishvari bhavatat bhakti rahoita gitvai. Lord Chaitanya's teaching is to transcend all other aspirations to be the servant of Lord Sri Krishna. So please forgive me for being away for so long. But ultimately, if I feel a calling of Srila Prabhupada, I must do that. I have nothing else. That's how Prabhupada lived with his Guru Maharaj. And that's my life and soul, to try to humbly follow in his footsteps. I often cite on disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada told the whole story, at least not the whole story, but much of the story, of how he first met his Guru Maharaj and how he struggled and how he ultimately came to the West and went back to India. And Prabhupada, after explaining again and again what his Guru's instruction to him was and how he tried, and that's what he said, I'm just trying. He never said he did anything great. He said, I'm just trying to execute the order of my Guru Maharaj. And then he said, I'm an old man now. And this lecture was around 1970. He said, I'm old. It is nature's law that at any moment I could die. Nothing to be confused about, it's natural. He said, but you are young. And you are all representatives of my Guru Maharaj. Please take very sincerely to help me to serve the order of my spiritual master. And when Prabhupada was asking us to do that, he was crying. Crying out of gratitude for his disciples and crying in a mood of pleading for us to fill the order of his Guru Maharaj. He said, it is Lord Chaitanya's order, given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, coming through me to you. So we are a family, and we're all playing our roles, whether we're mothers or fathers or students or brahmacharis or grihastas, we're all playing our role. But we have this thread that's connecting all of our hearts. And what really makes this a spiritual family? It's because we chant together and we dance together and we hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam together and we serve the deities together and we serve each other together. But also because we're all on the thread of this mission of assisting Srila Prabhupada according to who we are, where we are. And we're all trying to understand. So here in Mumbai and in Pune and so many places that our devotees are, Srila Prabhupada spoke, and what Srila Prabhupada spoke, my life and soul is only to represent that. When Srila Prabhupada said, you can show your love for me by how you cooperate, that's my message to you. It's Prabhupada's message to all of us. I'm just sharing Prabhupada's message. You can show your love for me by how you cooperate. Cooperation's very difficult. And you'll find that I often speak on this subject. Why? Because it's easy to memorize rasa tattva. You just need a little good memory. If you want to memorize all the details of what the gopis are doing in Vrindavan, you can apply it like our IIT people learn engineering. But you can't understand it. Understand means in the heart. In bhakti, understanding means there's a transformation. If we actually understand Bhagavad Gita, if we actually understand Srimad Bhagavatam, if we understand the books of the Goswamis, that understanding will be that our arrogance is transformed into Trinadapi Sunichena, true humility. Our greed is transformed into an eagerness to give Krishna to others. Selfless service. Gopi Bhartur Pada Kamalayo Das Das Anu Das. This is what cooperation means. To show our love, we first show our love by trying to live as representatives of the words of our acharyas. And there's no question of the diversity of people. In this world, people with so many different natures. There's Brahmins and there's Kshatriyas and there's Vaishyas and there's Shudras and there's Grihastas and Vanaprasthas and Sannyasis and Brahmacharis, and there's, most people don't know what they are. Yes? Most people really don't know what they are. And even if they really try to be Varnashram, they get all confused. Because they think they're one thing, but they're really not. So there's so many different ideas. And throughout history of the world, in any religion or any spiritual path, there's the people who are modern and there's the people who are super traditional. In every way, in every form, in Kali Yuga, there is a reason to fight. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is unity and diversity. Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Quite an extraordinary thing. Impersonalists focus only on the oneness. Others focus on the difference. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jiva Goswami expanded on it so much. Jiva Goswami gives such incredible evidence and philosophical explanation of oneness. And when we actually understand that oneness very deeply, then we can enter into the experience within that one is limitless variety, and that's where bhava, prema, and rasa is to be. So with our diversity, we must understand socially, as a family, what is our oneness? We could all invent our own idea of oneness. But Srila Prabhupada told, you could show your love for me by how you cooperate. By somehow or other. The pure siddhanta of ecstatic love for Krishna is our ultimate purpose. But Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, they were so expert due to their kindness, their compassion, their vision to include more and more people. One of the most beautiful things that I experience here at Radha Gopinath Temple and our various branches, you may say, is many of you, I knew you when you were teenagers and you first started coming to the Krishna consciousness movement. Then you'd come to my room and sit on the little straw mat. And somebody like Radha Krishna Prabhu would say, these two people want to get married. They want your blessings. Who am I? I have a standard answer. But it comes from my heart that I will pray that Radha Gopinath will bless you. And somehow or other, then the couple comes, sits on my straw mat. We want your blessings to start a family and have children. I pray that Radha Gopinath will bless you. And then a few years later, the parents come with their children and other children. Now, our children want to get married. They want your blessings. I pray that Radha Gopinath will bless you. And then a little later, the children of the children come. We want to start a family and have children. My answer, same. And seeing so many generations of our children, and in various ways, in this modern society of Mumbai, where there's so much craziness and so many distractions at every step. I'm just so proud and so grateful and so happy to see so many of our devotees and their children and their grandchildren imbibing respect and faith in the path of devotional service. And from the Varnashram perspective, when Prabhupada started the movement, everyone was living in temples as full-time devotees. Children were sent to schools, a distant place. But he did say, I want all of you to establish Varnashram Dharma. And that is something that will take time. But part of that is congregation, empowered congregation. And one of the beautiful successes of our temples has been this unity and diversity of brahmacharis, having total respect for the Grihastha congregation. And the Grihastha congregation having total respect for exemplary brahmacharis. And serving together, infusing our unity within our diversity is very much foundational to whatever little success we have. Whatever we can do, the Vaishnav truth is I'm not the doer. As soon as when Prabhupada was on Jaladuta, he was only praying to be a puppet. He wasn't praying, make me do this. He was praying, Krishna, I'm yours. And he would give all credit to his disciples and all credit to his guru and all credit to Krishna. But when devotees start taking credit for what they do, when they start taking credit for what they know, then there's conflict, inevitably. Because we've gone outside the limits of Vaishnav culture. Within Vaishnav culture, there's cooperation. Why? Because Vaishnava culture is, I'm not the doer. It's all given to me. So if it's all given to me, and I'm just an instrument, all of us, our acharyas are thinking like that. What to speak of us? Then whatever we know how to do, we're just trying to do it in harmony with the will of Srila Prabhupada and our gurus. And to the degree as a community, we've embraced that type of humility, that type of dedication, to that degree, we flourished. The material world is a very hard place. People in this material world emotionally and in every way have so much damage done before they even come to this movement. And then even sometimes damage comes afterward. That's not because of Krishna consciousness, that's just because the way the world. But Vaishnava community, we're here for each other, to help each other. Radhe Shyam Prabhu, who's here, he sends, everywhere I go in the world, there are people trained by Radhe Shyam Prabhu. He just dispatches people everywhere. If I'm in Texas, if I'm in New York, if I'm in London, if I'm in Italy, I was trained by Radhesha. Grihastas, Brahman, it's a spirit of expanding Lord Chaitanya's movement. But that expansion and that sharing among each others, it's very, very beautiful and essential to remind each other, what are we supposed to share? Very simple. The message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's teaching the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Vedas. Prema Pumarta Mahan. That the highest goal of life is unmotivated, uninterrupted, ecstatic love for Krishna. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir dokshache oitaki aprati hata